The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the Handle Factory Community Clay Studio in Shelburne Falls, offering summer youth clay and art camps and classes for adults. Learn more at handlefactory.com.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Clee Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte.
And if you can't believe it, it's Monday once again.
It's usually a Friday thing in honor of David Lynch, but there was a David Lynch-themed chicken shack at the Green River Festival called Twin Peaks.
That made pretty decent chicken, I'm going to say.
I did have a sandwich, and we had a banger of a weekend in Greenfield, and we'll give you a glimpse of the goings-on with our sessions from Green River Festival with Olive Klug.
And we'll chat with UMass professor John Wynn about his debut novel, The Setup.
But first, this weekend was not just a time to gather in Franklin County and hear great music.
As it turns out, it was also a time of incredible international crisis.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Time once again for a little bit of kitchen table astronomy, but a lot of bit of global politics with Hampshire College astronomer and the head of Kainat Studios, Salman Hamid, Mr. Universe. I was having a great time at the Green River Festival watching Kathleen Edwards, who was, I think, one of my top acts of the whole time, when a push notification comes through from the New York Times on my phone, which I should shut off at all times, but certainly when I'm in a good mood situation like Green River Festival, that said the United States had bombed Iran. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, a quick bit of astronomy, the Vera Rubin telescope.
Yeah, I wish that we would be talking about this amazing telescope, Vera Rubin Observatory, and the telescope that has just released its images today. It's going to, and we use this word quite often, but this is true, it's going to revolutionize astronomy because it will be scanning the entire skies with the biggest camera that astronomers have ever built. It's going to be incredible, but you will have to wait another week because there is bombing going on in other parts of the world. We are back in the Middle East. If I can tie it in with astronomy a little bit. When I was in graduate school, I worked on how stars form in galaxies, and I was an observational astronomer. So we would use telescopes and use data, but then you had cosmologists. And cosmologists work with computer simulations of the whole universe. You can imagine, and that was part of our joke as well, that their egos were bigger than the Milky Way because they are playing God in that sense, right? They're like, okay, hey, if I change this variable, how does the universe come out? So there is a little lighthearted ribbing between observational astronomers and these people who do computer simulations. So we used to joke about it that cosmologists are often in error but never in doubt. And I bring it up because to me it seems like the U.S. foreign policy, especially when it comes to the Middle East, follows the same principle. Mm-hmm. U.S. foreign policy is often in error, but the administration is never in doubt. Mm-hmm. And right now, of course, some people are remembering the mission accomplished banner by President George W. Bush after the Iraq War had just started. And of course, there were many years later when the official withdrawal of the U.S. troops took place, and it cost tens of thousands of lives and hundreds of thousands of people who are injured and affected for the rest of their lives. Same thing with Afghanistan. Afghanistan, again, much more closer to Pakistan in that
Where
sense,
you're from originally.
Where I'm originally from. And after 2 decades or more, finally the U.S. withdrew from there. And the whole purpose was to remove the Taliban from power. And when they left, Taliban was in power. Mm. Now we are again in a step where President Trump just announced about the successful mission that just took place of the bombing of the nuclear sites in Iran, which is an act of war, which is also illegal. And saying that we are all done and Iran should come to a negotiating table. Now that we have bombed you, let's talk peace. And people like Thomas Friedman, I'm not even talking about the split in MAGA or people like Ted Cruz or John Bolton, who had been wanting to bomb Iran for a long time. But New York columnist, for example, Thomas Friedman, who had said back in 2003 he was really rooting for invasion of Iraq. There were a lot of people rooting for the invasion of Iraq. And he had said that we'll be greeted as liberators. And that did not happen. Again, this is one of those astonishing things that in these type of things, you only fail upwards. So instead of taking blame for the hundreds of thousands of lives that got impacted, Thomas Friedman is still there. And he just wrote an article saying, oh, people who are saying that regime change, they're reminded of 2003 or Iraq. Oh, it's completely different. That didn't happen because it was the fault of Iran, which is a weirdly bizarre reinterpretation of history. Nevertheless, we are again talking about regime change. In astronomy, we often talk about looking back in time, that we can actually, because of the finite speed of light, you are looking farther and farther back in time, the farther you look. Well, here is looking future in time, that when Newsweek or Time, if they survive, will put on the cover story, why do they hate us? Which they did back in the early 2000s. And they mean, of course, the Middle East or the Muslim world or various ways, various interpretations of that. But here is a little guide to it, crib sheet, because they get bombed quite often and illegally, and there is no recourse in terms of the international reaction to it. So would there be a little bit of a sentiment like, that no, we don't want to be liberated by being bombed? Maybe. And so I think we don't know how long this is going to continue. It's likely people remember from Iran, US was the one which overthrew a democratically elected government in the 1950s. Then when the Shah of Iran, who was not exactly the most congenial of leaders, let's put it this way, when he was overthrown in the Iranian Revolution, US was the one that was backing Shah. And again, all of that is not to say that Iranian administration or Iranian rulers are great. No. But the question is, what is our part? What is our government doing? And right now, our government has bombed another country in the Middle East after bombing Iraq, after bombing Afghanistan, and Somalia, of course, we randomly bomb Somalia.
Involved in Yemen as well.
Involved in Yemen as well. And Yemen, in fact, yeah. And so now we are talking about Iran, a country of 90 million people, if you have seen the clip between Ted Cruz and
Tucker Carlson, who's now a hard-hitting journalist for people that would have been friends on his Fox show.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay.
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
So this is where we are. Not a happy situation, a terrible situation, and the world is not safe. This is the ground rules that we are putting in place of how to react. But I think the second part I want to talk about is the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, for which part of the justification that has been given in terms of that Iran is violation of and so on and so forth, it is seen as hypocritical from perspective of outside of the US. Non-proliferation treaty started in 1968, and the point was, the worry was that at the time, that the world should not have many nuclear weapons because of our mutual annihilation. And we have enough weapons. Right now also we have enough weapons that we can all destroy ourselves. And so the question was, okay, so can there be a way to motivate countries to not pursue the weapons program? There are certain countries, so at that time, the US, the Soviet Union at that time, and then France, England, and China had nuclear weapons. And it's like, okay, so these countries have that, but how do we deter many more countries to have nuclear weapons, because then the likelihood of a nuclear conflict becomes higher. And so for that reason, there was this NPT. And today, the NPT, Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, is signed by over 190 countries. But there are multiple three parts to that treaty. One is that countries should not pursue nuclear weapons, and I think that's one part of it, and countries who have signed it said, yeah, we are not doing that. But there are other two parts. The second part, which is equally crucial, is that the countries that do have nuclear weapons are going to dismantle or disarm their nuclear arsenal as well. And the third part was to reward not pursuing a nuclear weapons program. The countries are going to be allowed to use nuclear science for peaceful purposes, and also the nuclear armed countries are going to help them with that technology. So as you can see, there are actually three parts to that, And you go like, okay, so somebody can violate, and Iran has been accused of violating this NPT, which they did sign. Okay, but guess what? There are some countries that did not sign. So the countries that did not sign include Israel, India, Pakistan, and they actually ended up building nuclear weapons. And North Korea withdrew from it, and it also have a nuclear weapon now. The lesson from what is happening right now would be that if you don't have a nuclear weapon, then there is a big likelihood that you are going to get invaded and bombed.
Well, we saw this with Ukraine, who voluntarily disarmed their nuclear armament with the idea that they would be protected if they were invaded. Then they were invaded, and they have been somewhat protected, but as everybody knows, are still engaged in a war that has dragged on for years and years and years. And maybe, I'm not saying I'm pro-nuclear weapon, it would have been more of a deterrent had they not got rid of their nuclear arsenal. However, they were doing, I think, what they felt was the right thing in regards to the global community of non-proliferation of nuclear weapons.
And you can also think about that with Iraq and Libya. The list actually, the lessons to learn from it, from a rational perspective, from a nation's perspective. The only lesson I think you can learn from that is that if you don't have a deterrence, you are going to get pummeled by conventional weapons because there is a power imbalance in there. But if you do, for example, North Korea decided to pull out of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and then it went ahead and actually tested the bomb. It was okay. I should frame it with a context that I've been against nuclear weapons from as far as I remember because of Carl Sagan, because he always talked about, who speaks for Earth? Nuclear annihilation is our biggest threat. He talked about that this is our technological adolescence, that we have to get by it because as soon as we develop the technology to communicate with other civilizations, we also built the technology to annihilate ourselves. And so for him, that was one of the reasons he was so anti-nuclear. And for me, growing up on Cosmos, to me, that was the most natural thing. And so when India tested the bomb again in 1998 and Pakistan responded, I thought that was a crazy thing because they are so close to each other. Mutual destruction in that context is actually even more assured than with the Soviet Union and the United States. But the way the world is shaping up with a lot of dictatorial democrats, you can think about it that way. I mean, Modi, for example, in India is very belligerent towards Pakistan and, of course, President Trump. In that sense, what happened between Pakistan and India, it looked like if Pakistan did not have a deterrent last May, I think it would have led to an open war, which Pakistan being a much smaller country and less technologically advanced compared to India, they would have been pummeled. But there was a deterrence because of the nuclear weapons. The lesson, in that sense, to me, to be a fairer world, NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty, doesn't guarantee you that. In fact, to be not bullied by other countries that have nuclear weapons and have conventional weapon superiority, in some sense, a fairer world requires you to have deterrence. And I think that's the lesson which anybody would take from what has happened, for example, in Iran recently. Now the likelihood that what Iran is going to come to peace and say, oh, we are giving up nuclear weapons, or are they going to accelerate their efforts to really build the bomb? I think the bet would be on the latter.
The one thing that it seemed like happened over the weekend is Marco Rubio and others on the Sunday talk shows, which I didn't see as much of as I might have if Green River Festival wasn't happening, backed away from the regime change rhetoric a little bit, which perhaps is a positive sign, at least in the sense that this may not continue to the point where the entire regime in Iran would have to be turned over? Or do you think that that is Pollyannish of me to think that perhaps the U.S. involvement in this could actually be done?
Well, what does it mean? Whether they say regime change or not, they have just bombed. And the bombing has taken place when negotiations were taking place. Trump himself said, I'm going to give it 2 weeks. There was conversation going on, and the 2 days later, he bombed. It's also, from the New York Times, it appears that Trump may have led them to believe that there is real negotiations going on when Israel's surprise attack happened. So that is also part of the thing. And the attack happened with tacit approval, or at least information to the U.S. So the U.S. knew about the attack happening while they are negotiating the conversation about what to do about the nuclear weapons and what to do about the peace treaty. And when in the first Trump administration, when the U.S. pulled out of this multinational treaty, everybody said that Iran was complying with that. So it is weird, and this is one of those jujitsu moves, that people still think that Iran is the bad guy. Iran is the one who's violating all of these things, whereas it is us who keep on doing things that are in violation of international order, international treaties, and these multinational treaties with Iran.
As well as our own laws in some circumstances. Democratic lawmakers and even some Republican lawmakers are saying, we have bombed another country. We have essentially declared war without declaring war. That is within the power that the Congress should hold, and we need to bring that power back from the executive branch.
And regarding the NPT as well, the US is planning on spending $1.7 trillion on modernizing US nuclear weapons program over 30 years. I mean, that turns out to about like $57 billion per year, or more starkly put, $108,000 per minute for 30 years. So to come out and say, you cannot have the nuclear bomb because of the NPT. But remember that one of the key components of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty was that the countries that do have that are going to reduce and disarm. And here the US is planning on spending $1.7 trillion or $108,000 per minute. So when we talk about, we don't have money for schools, Amherst, Northampton, there are a bunch of schools that are actually struggling with that. I mean, I looked at it, that Amherst school was in a $2 million shortfall, and you can actually get some of that, with 10 to 20 minutes of the spending on this nuclear arsenal, right? That's all, because you are spending $100,000 roughly per minute on modernizing nuclear weapons. So it is pretty clear that the countries that have nuclear weapons, and right now the estimate is that there are about 12,000 nuclear weapons in the world. US has around 4,000, Russia has about 4,500, and of course I've mentioned China has 400, Pakistan 170, India 160, and Israel expected to have around 90 or so. So there are a lot of nuclear weapons in there. The countries that don't have it can get bombed. I think when there are a lot of different rules that are being shattered right now, international rules, including what's happening in Gaza, including what's happening between Pakistan and India also going through, and also in Iran, I don't know how to end on a positive note. That is one of the reasons why I didn't want to talk about Vera Rubin Observatory, because astronomy gives you this big cosmic perspective, but this requires more than that.
Well, I will try to end it on a positive note. If you believe that nuclear weapons should be banned, there is a local connection. 2 organizations based in Northampton, Massachusetts, have members who are associated with these international treaties, which the United States has never signed up for. But Timon Wallace and Vicky Elson are part of an organization that you can learn more about at nuclearban.us, and they go around the globe trying to work with international governments to talk about the dangers of nuclear weapons. And I'll also add Dr. Ira Helfand, who is a physician in Northampton. Both of these organizations are Nobel Peace Prize winning organizations. Dr. Ira Helfand, physicians working hard to try to show how dangerous nuclear weapons are for human beings from a perspective of a physician. So these are organizations and people who live in your neighborhoods who are working hard to do this thing that is on a grand scale globally that can help us hopefully focus more on a cosmic scale more usually.
And raise your voice against war.
We gotta have peace. And we have actually talked with all of those local folks who've made the fight against nuclear weapons their mission. Check back through our archives for those.
And as you'll hear on NPR, Iran has responded today by bombing a U.S. base in Qatar. No casualties reported. Later, we'll dig into the new novel, The Setup, with author John Wynn to launch our summer reading week.
After we relive some of our Green River Festival experiences through a pop-up session with Olive Klug next.
You're listening to The Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, helping customers make the switch to solar for savings, energy security, and tax incentives. Learn more at northeast-solar.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Window World of Western Mass, a local family business with experienced craftsmen offering skylights, siding, gutters, and doors. windowworldofwesternma.com.
You have a better, hey, welcome to another Fabulous 413 pop-up show here at the Green River Festival exhibit. at the Green River Festival.
Woo, woo, woo! We're with the Memorial Hall Museum from Deerfield, and we're across from the Roundhouse in the Youth Hall. We've been recording pop-ups throughout the duration of this wonderful festival, which is almost 40 years old, I think.
Yeah,
Next
40
year, I
years
believe, is
next
the 40th.
year.
We could ask the historians of the festival who are here with us. We are correct. Well, to add to the history of the festival, there's a living history being built right now because there's a T-shirt that's being signed by all the people that are doing the pop-ups, which is really
Which is
fun.
awesome.
Maybe someday that will be in Memorial Hall.
I hope so.
And one of those autographs is from our next performer.
Olive Glug is a Portland-born, Nashville-based singer-songwriter who graduated with a liberal arts degree shortly before the 2020 pandemic, lucky you, and derailed their plans of pursuing a career in social work.
Though they'd recorded and self-released the 2019 EP Fire Alarm from a childhood friend's bedroom up until early 2021, Olive categorized their music as either a hobby or a pipe dream.
However, after being laid off of a teaching job in late 2020, Olive started working as a barista and decided to commit all of their extra energy to an ever-growing community of fans online. Their fans have been dubbed Clugbugs.
It's fun because Kathleen Edwards, who's playing later, left music to become a barista, but then came back to music. So
Yeah.
Well, I did that too at one point. I feel like musicians are always flip-flopping between being musicians and baristas. That's just the
Slash restaurant work.
Yeah.
There's a
Slash
lot of
restaurant.
musicians
It's
in
very-
restaurant work in general.
it's all honest work, if
Well,
you ask me.
Also, it's an easy way to get fed if
Yeah.
you're not getting paid for your
Ooh,
gigs.
that's
And
true.
caffeinated.
That's true.
Olive relies on their social work background to use their music to build community and work for social change. Thanks so much for joining us here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no,
It's our
our pleasure,
pleasure.
especially after the week that you've had.
Yeah,
Yes. Sorry.
No,
No,
don't.
no,
Why
no.
are you
No
sorry
apologies necessary.
for the
Maybe-
circumstances of your week? All those things happened to you, not to us. They
Maybe-
happened to you.
We'll hear a little bit about that in a minute. But let's start out with a song.
All right. What song am I going to sing? That's really the question.
That's something only you can answer.
Okay. Ooh, you know what is going to feel good? I'm going to sing Casting Spells. It's a sweet song about believing in magic, and it required a lot of magic for me to appear at this festival today. But I think there was a lot of magic at work that got me here, so I am grateful for that magic. Told me there were fairies in the backyard, so I whispered every time the tulips grew. You told me there's a bowling alley underneath the mess hall, so I listened close for all the strikes you threw. You told me you had magic powers to take away my hiccups. Still wonder how it worked every time. You told me that one day I'd be in the driver's seat of my own life, and it might get kinda scary, but it'd be mine. Some of this magic has faded, but don't you dare call me jaded, 'cause I'm closer than I seem. I'm staring at my wildest dreams. I'm out here casting spells on my life, left and right. You told me shooting for the moon was worth it, so I listened even if I miss, I'll land among the stars. You told me if you use imagination, all the farthest magic kingdoms can exist right where you are. Then I started growing, the evidence started showing that these tall tales were gilded with lies. They told me to be practical, these idioms weren't factual. It's time to let these silly visions die. Some of this magic has faded, but don't you dare make me jaded, 'cause I'm closer than I seem. I'm staring at my wildest dreams. I'm out here casting left and right.
Olive Klug live from the Youth Hall at the Green River Festival 2025, performing a fabulous 413 pop-up with us.
I feel like you actually did cast a spell on your life to be here, considering what I heard earlier.
Yes.
I did.
Tell us about your adventures to get to the Green River Festival. We talked about some of your life adventures in your intro that you actually had to endure. The pandemic, the loss of a job, the change of career.
Yes, but I mean, I think I did get lucky. I think the pandemic affected people who were still in school, I think, a lot more. So I feel like I really just, it was a very near miss. It was actually kind of a good time for all of my life to be interrupted and changed, because your first year out of college, you're kind of supposed to do that. So I think that people who are in high school and college who have gotten to know, they've like, it's affected them worse. But my adventures getting here, I had the privilege of also being booked for Telluride Bluegrass Festival this year, but it just happened to fall on the same weekend as Green River Festival. And I was like, I can do both. I got this. And so I booked flights that allowed me to get some sleep, but my flight from Telluride to here was delayed, and I had to, at the last minute, figure out what I was going to do after a full day of playing a festival and not sleeping that much the night before. And then a new friend was also in a similar pickle, had to get to the East Coast, was on that flight to Dallas. And we decided together to rent a car, drive the 5.5 hours to Denver to catch a flight at midnight to get here by 6 a.m. The next day, and then or to get to Boston by 6 a.m. the next day. And then a friend picked me up from the Boston airport and drove me here. I am here. I haven't slept. So
I forget how far Telluride is from Denver. I went to school in Colorado Springs, which is 2 hours south.
Oh, yeah.
But when you get into the mountains, everything's much like getting to the Berkshires here.
Yeah.
Once you hit the mountains, it's just an hour for every 20 miles.
Yes.
I want to send a memo to all 2026 Green River Festival performers. See if you can fly to Hartford. It's so much closer.
Okay.
And
That's
sometimes
a good,
cheaper.
That is a really good advice.
Yeah, it's an easy airport to get in and out of. It's so simple.
My van right now is at the Albany, New York airport.
Oh
Yeah.
my!
I think that
Same
was
thing.
that was what I was planning to fly into, and then it was not possible. But at some point, I will have to go get my van from that airport. We'll see when that happens. But yeah.
Which do you feel more comfortable on, the banjo or the guitar, or other instruments that have come into your life since the pandemic and deciding to dive into music?
I mean, the guitar I've been playing it longer, but I really love the banjo. I just started playing it around 2 years ago, but I just it feels so good. It feels so good to me. And I feel like guitar has always felt a little bit like I've always played it, I've always enjoyed it, but it's never been wow, this just feels awesome. But every time I play banjo, I'm like, this just I love this. I get little joy from playing it. Maybe that's because it's newer, but it's still very fun.
We mentioned in your intro, Olive, that you were working in social work. You were and doing teaching and things like that. How does your social work background influence your songwriting skills? Are there times where you're thinking about this is something that I learned in school that now is making its way into my lyrics?
Yes, actually. I won't play this song because this song requires too much energy that I don't have.
Yeah. Pace yourself.
But I have a song called Opposite Action, which is actually a DBT therapy concept.
What is
it's on my
DBT?
new album, Dialectical Behavioral Therapy.
Oh, wow.
And it's the concept, and I remember really questioning it when I was learning it, but it's just you're just supposed to do the opposite of what your instincts tell you. If you're really depressed or having a mental health crisis, essentially, you're supposed to do the opposite of what your brain first tells you. So it's if you want to lay in bed all day, you're supposed to go outside and go for a walk. If you want to say something mean to your barista, you're supposed to say something really nice to your barista. You know what I mean? And I was well, that doesn't really make sense. You're just it does work, but at the same time, it feels close to repressing what's going on. So I had a period of time when I was kind of feeling depressed, and I was trying to implement those habits, but then it just ends up making you kind of like frustrated and angsty when you're like doing the opposite of what you want to do all the time.
So you're still skeptical about it as a therapy, as a human being, not as a sociologist.
Yeah, but I think it also does, it can work depending on the situation. But I wrote a song about it.
There's a little fake it till you make it,
Yes,
seems like.
you guys can all listen to that on my album, but I cannot play it for you right now.
That is quite fair.
Yeah.
Similarly, do you find that there are parallels between your musical career and what you wanted to do in social work?
Yes, definitely. I feel like I am definitely like making an impact on people, on communities. I feel very fulfilled by that, and it is. Yeah, I feel like the end goal is the same. I just think that maybe I am better suited for the music part of it. I mean, maybe who knows? Maybe I would have been good at the other part of it too. But yeah, I think that the end goal is very similar. Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that have gone the same route as you, where they went to school, they got a degree, they thought they were going in the right direction for a career path, but had this music living within them. Not everybody has the benefit of a pandemic to shake up the entire world to help make those decisions, but talk about making that decision as a person who wanted to make a life in this. We mentioned in your intro that there was a little bit of self-doubt going into, the beginnings of your career. Any encouragement you have for people who think that they might want to take the leap?
Yeah, just do it. I don't know. Like you can't. You have to put yourself out there. I think that's the biggest piece of advice. Is no matter how scary it is, no matter how vulnerable it feels, if it's something you want, you have to do it. You have to go to open mics. You have to send booking emails. You have to play in front of people. You have to show people your songs, because you're not going to be able to do it if you don't do that. And when I was first starting out, I got so nervous every time I played a song, and now I'm like, this is like eating a sandwich. You know what I mean? So I'm like, here I am.
So when you feel like you shouldn't do a song, what you ultimately should do is go do that song. So it is DBT therapy then.
Isn't that also like the Wilco approach to it? Like, just write the song. It doesn't have to be good. Just write the song.
Yeah.
I also feel that way. Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, and it's never going to be perfect. Every song I've written, there's like something about it that I'm like, that part wasn't perfect. But yeah, I think that like destroying perfectionism is a really good thing to do. I think perfectionism can get in the way of sharing and creating things that are really great but not perfect.
That's a mantra for our show. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
That's what I was trying to say. I was like, there's some quote in there that's like a real quote, and it was there, but
And my other favorite one, I think it's G.K. Chesterton said, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly.
Yeah.
So go for it.
Well, yeah, and I when I first wrote this banjo song I'm going to play, I didn't actually know how to play banjo. You're not supposed to strum it like this, like a guitar, but that's how I wrote it. And then I learned how to like properly do the claw hammer, and I love doing the claw hammer, but I posted it anyway, even though I didn't know how to play banjo, and people really liked it anyway. So it's like, you gotta just do it.
Love
you gotta
it.
just do it.
Much like people, we like them flaws and all.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, shall we hear this banjo song?
Let's hear the banjo song.
Let's hear another round of applause here on the fabulous 413 live from the Youth Hall at the Green River Festival for Olive Cook.
Well, I might know a little more than you about girls and curls and the weight of the world, but I don't know quite what to do when I can't stop thinking of you. Well, you might know a little more than me about stars and guitars and making ends meet, but you don't know what to make of me. I know that you don't know what to make of me. Well, I thought I was immune to this kind of pining, but it lends itself too well to aimless driving. As I make my way to Georgia, I'll leave a candle burning for you. Wonder if you're wishing you were the flame. Wonder if your lips are in the shape of my name. Well, you might know that I'm a bit obsessed with your dirty blonde shag and the way that you dress. I wanna just crawl around in your life, maybe share a cocoon. One day we could fly, fly, fly. Well, I thought I was immune to this kind of pining, but it lends itself too well to aimless driving. think of the way that you called yourself pretty and wonder what kind of word you might use for me. Know deep in my heart that we could never be. 'Cause I know that you don't know what to make of me. I know that you don't know what to make of me. As I make my way back to LA, I get a little drunk at the end of the day and tell my friends that you're too blind to see the goddamn miracle that done made of me. Well, I know deep in my heart you're too blind to see the goddamn miracle done made of me.
Come on, that's not 2 years on the banjo. That was really good.
Oh, thank you.
You can strum it and you can claw hammer, and it sounds perfect.
Exactly.
Not too perfect, but perfect enough.
Thank you. Yeah.
I have one real quick last question. So, with people coming in and playing our show who are touring artists, I usually find that they fit in one of two camps. Like, playing shows for people is one thing, but touring is entirely another. Do you find touring to be, like, exciting or really exhausting?
Today and this weekend aside.
Today, I find it exhausting. However, it's very, very exciting at the same time. It's a lot of really, really high highs and sometimes low lows. It's a lot. It's like very intense. Like, I don't know. I think that I'm sure I like had a great time performing today. I was like feeling so good and so proud of myself for making it. And the other day at Telluride, I was like on this huge stage in front of the biggest mountains I'd ever seen. And then I went and danced with my friends, and I was like having the best time ever. But then it was also like, you know, in an airport, sweating, have all my stuff. Will I make it? Where am I? Why am I renting this car with this person I don't know? I'm going to have to spend $400 to rent this car to get to this place. Like, you know, it's like, it's very, there's no boredom in that. There's no boredom in it, but it's exciting and hard. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad that you made the journey here to the Green River Festival.
Thank you. I'm
Went through
glad I
all
made it
those
too.
hurdles and hoops to get here.
Yes. Thank you for having me. And again, come to a show where I've slept and you're just going to be blown away. You're going to be like, that's a different person.
If we're already
I'll
blown away,
do-
so I can't even imagine.
I will have played that first song in the right key and said the right words. Didn't do that this time. So, you know,
What did
it's
we
gonna
say
be
about
totally
perfection?
different.
Don't let it be the enemy of the good.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Well, you really didn't get perfection this time, so you're good.
It's
You're
our
good.
kind of
Yeah.
perfection. Another round of applause here at the Green River Festival for Olive Plug on the fabulous 413. Thank you so much.
Find their albums at Signature Sounds.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
Signature
Um,
Sounds, our
Signature
local
Sound,
hometown
Lost
record label.
Dog. Yeah, it's on the table, the merch table, which I haven't seen yet, but I think it made its way over there.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
If y'all are interested, I
Okay.
do find that I'm like I don't play music better when I'm really tired. My banter is good. I think I'm like pretty funny when I'm like exhausted.
You'll
I'm
be
like-
able to
I'm
hear
like,
it on
yeah.
a podcast eventually
Okay,
too.
yeah.
So then you can assess it, with a clearer head.
All right, or maybe you're just laughing because you're like podcasters. I don't know.
No,
I don't
we're-
know.
No, we laugh because we're delighted.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm like, I don't know, maybe like they're laughing really hard. They think I'm
Yes.
hilarious. I don't know. But
Exactly.
anyways, thank you so much for
Thank you
having
so
me.
much.
Thank you. We'll air more of our pop-ups from Green River Festival with Thus Love and Ally McGurk and Layla McCalla on later shows. And thanks again to Olive Klug for making us part of their festival.
Now to dive into the dreams lost in Las Vegas with the author of the new novel, The Setup, UMass Professor John Wynn.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, dedicated to creating access to financial well-being for local people, businesses, and communities. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413, and we've unofficially started a summer reading week, and we're chatting with a bunch of local authors, all of whom have published work recently, including our current guest in studio, author and professor Jonathan Wynn.
John Wynn studies urban culture. His previous publications include The Tour Guide, Walking and Talking New York, Music City, American Festivals and Placemaking in Austin, Nashville, and Newport, and The City and the Hospital. In addition to articles and other works published in City and Community, Qualitative Sociology, Media, Culture and Society, Sociological Forum, The Guardian, The Conversation, and The Washington Post.
But his most recent book is fiction. His first novel, The Setup, takes a look at journalism, con artists, cults, and dreams deferred against the backdrop of Sin City. And with us to explore this new work is the author himself, John Wynn. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you both for having me.
We have a sociology theme on the show because Olive Klug, sociologist, talking about sociology musically speaking, and you are a sociology professor and writing about fiction.
Well, more social work, which is kind of blends the line between sociology and psychology.
I never get those correct.
Yeah.
They all sound like the same thing to me. But
they all look at people, but in very different ways.
Yes.
We're taking over. It's a sociology takeover.
The Setup is the name of the book, and I was reading it backstage at the Green River Festival, and lots of different people were saying, "What's that book about?" And I would give them a little pitch. But do you want to give us what your pitch for what the setup for the setup, as it were?
The Setup for the Setup is a noir novel set in Las Vegas, as you said, about a rogue guerrilla marketing agency that hires out-of-work actors to go and manipulate people in real time. So whether it's downloading a smartphone app or kind of nudging people towards going to a restaurant or avoiding a strip club or something like that, they use a kind of legal gray area to manipulate people in real time. And so it is a kind of Ocean's 11 style murder mystery. So there's this inciting, kind of mysterious death at the beginning that brings three different people together to try and puzzle out what kind of what happened, and it takes them to the backstage of the city where the political, racial, cultural history gears turn, and they see just how much the kind of con goes upward and how much their own con artistry, how far it gets them. So it's a little bit of a thriller with a definite sociological kind of description of how cities work.
You used to live in Las Vegas. Did that have any influence on your then studying urban culture?
Without a doubt. I would say that it's one of the places in the country where you can step out and find a dissertation on any street corner. It is a amazing, beautiful place. I love Las Vegas very, very deeply. It did make me into a cities person and a culture person. And so I am incredibly grateful for my 4 years of being in Las Vegas. I love it. I hope that the love comes out on the page.
Oh, absolutely.
I get offended when people say that it's a trashy place or say negative things about it because I love Las Vegas.
I actually reframed I've only been to Las Vegas once and I found it incredibly unsettling, not bad, just unsettling. And so this was a really interesting reframing of some of the things that I got to experience being in Las Vegas, reading this book. It was.
What did you find unsettling?
Mostly the ceilings.
Tell me about were they all mirrors?
No, they're painted like sky, that you don't really realize what time it is.
Oh, you mean in the casinos themselves?
In the casinos themselves.
Yeah.
It was just, it was just very, I got very lost in time.
By design.
By design, which is why I found it unsettling. But that's not a thing that happens in this book. We were talking about your novel.
Yes. John Wynn, would you mind reading a little bit of the setup for us?
I'd be happy to. So we're about midway through, and just two of the characters kind of on the strip. The Marks bump helter-skelter through the pale horde of tourists gawking at the high casino facades. The woman wearing a tank with 2 Greek letters in her hair so blonde it's almost white attractively frames her blue sky eyes. The man is in flip-flops and a muscle shirt, flaunting 3 black bands of faux tribal tattoos on his right arm. Both are so powdery white they almost make Webb want to sneeze. They're perfect. He lifts his eyebrows and points his chin in their direction, signaling Allie, who needs no further instruction. So sorry, can you help us? She asks, extending her smartphone without waiting for a response. Webb must admit, Allie is getting a nice response, much less suspicion than he would usually garner, even if he were holding a primetime Emmy in his other hand. She's wearing a soft patterned skirt, a cute lilac-striped boat neck top, new Adidas, and over the course of her last few interactions, she's developed a cute 1-foot dragon lean as she approaches her marks. It's endearing and unthreatening, cat-like. She couldn't be more middle of the road if he dressed her up in 2 yellow lines. She's landed 4 of 5 targets thus far. He's pleased. This is the kind of gig Webb has come to think of as a classic setup, approaching tourists in a targeted demographic, in this case 18 to 24-year-olds or the Red Bull demo, to put the PicSnapper app in front of their eyeballs. 100 photos, $100 for the afternoon. There are a few easy tricks, which Webb showed Allie before they hit the strip. Use the phone as a landing party. Then enter the target zone of attention, apologizing for not yet launching the app. Say something like, "Ooh, sorry, it's right here," while displaying the candy-colored whirl icon before handing the phone over and gushing, "It's so easy." Everyone's already taking pictures nonstop anyway. It's the new nervous system linking the body's dopamine reward pathways with the blurred and blissed-out exterior environment. The sidewalks on the Strip used to line up Mormon straight to the curb, but now they jut and curve to design people, bodies bouncing from one casino to the next into slow and steady flows. This coercive architecture happily creates nooks for Webb and Allie to do their work. The Delta Gamma glances over at her boyfriend and then relents. "Sure," she says. "Of course." Allie's at 5 out of 6. Webb has a second gig nestled into the first, another job parallel to Allie's, and he's nailing it too.
That is author and UMass professor John Wynn from the new novel The Setup. When I was reading The Setup, which Khalees and I both read over the weekend and was wicked fun, although we both stopped 30 pages before the end so we wouldn't ruin it for anybody on the radio, but we're both excited to see how it ends. I was on page 230 and I was like, I found the perfect setup for The Setup, which I'll read to you now. So you lost your job. You're getting paid through an app for causing mayhem with your merry band of Hamlet hooligans. You've changed your clothes. You've traded your textbooks for comic books. Now someone's dead? I think that says an awful lot about what this book is about.
And it's just a perfect setup for a noir.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a little break with John Wynn. We'll come back and talk more about the setup and the setup for tomorrow's show that John Wynn is a setup for in and of himself.
Nestled within nestled.
Yes. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. I'm Monty Belmonte.
And I'm Khalees Smith, and we are with author John Wynn, whose recent novel, The Setup, we read and is fantastic.
Really fun for our summer reading week. Perfect summer reading, for sure.
Indeed. I had questions, but now my brain is empty.
Okay. I always am interested in where the germ of the idea starts. And I've talked to so many authors who say, like, the idea starts here and it unfolds. Stephen King has, likened it to being a paleontologist uncovering fossils slowly but surely as you go, and you don't know if it's going to be a Tyrannosaurus Rex or what it will be. Where did the germ of this idea start?
So I was a brand new graduate student at UNLV, in the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and I was assigned a class to teach alternative lifestyles. And being a new instructor, I thought, I'm just going to bring in guest speakers. And so I brought in a variety of guest speakers, Hell's Angels, but also people from the Unitarian Church and Scientology to come into the class and speak with my students under the general rule of, quote, don't embarrass John. The students were very polite and very friendly to all the guests, but it did give me this idea about the different kind of religious backgrounds and different cultures that are in the city, and it gave me real insight, some of which is on this page. There's definite hints to some of those groups within the pages.
For sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the embarrassing your teacher that you bring in when you're a guest speaker.
Yep.
That is ripped from today's headlines as a professor at UMass Amherst. Painfully ripped from today's headlines.
Does this happen to you to this day? I was reminded of the German movie The Educators as this went along. Have either of you seen it?
No.
No.
Okay, so it is about a merry band of folks looking for revolution who break into rich people's homes and move all of their stuff around. And it gets a little darker, but in a very similar way to what happens with the setup in this particular book. And that's not giving things away for folks who have seen that movie, but it is pretty interesting. I was wondering if you'd seen it and if it was an inspiration, and clearly it's not. But go see it. I think you'll be interested.
I would bet that we have similar inspirations, though. I mean, I definitely think that sounds up this alley, right? The idea basically that all of our everyday life is constructed, and there are people with varying interests trying to manipulate us, whether it's kind of just through conversation or through our furniture in our home. There certainly are ways that casinos, you were just talking about casinos kind of manipulating your sense of space and time, right? And so that's very much part of the book, and it is to try and shake our understanding of the real and what it is. So it is a fiction book, but it is referencing very real things. Police officers send in people to check and see if there are people who are carding in restaurants. There are in Japan, you can rent a grandfather, rent a family. We have a president who their first announcement was had people hired in the audience to pretend to be fans of Donald Trump, right? So these are very real things. There are people who walk among us who are hired.
Yeah.
So that's very much the part of what drew me to doing this book.
Was it hard to fictionalize so much of your area of study and make it entertaining as opposed to academic?
As much as I love Las Vegas, I love sociology. This is, so I thought that this was actually this is the most sociological book I've ever written, because it is able to talk about, W.E.B. Du Bois and Irving Goffman and Howie Becker, all of these classic sociologists, but then setting them loose in an entirely different environment and kind of freeing them up to do, put them into wacky, zany, kind of whodunit mystery. So it actually was maybe too easy.
And yet you made the professor a journalism professor rather than a sociology professor.
I did. So I can kind of kick around journalism a little bit rather than sociology. Yes.
It just give it that sense of urgency as
it's fine.
Journalism is something that is happening and published every single day, multiple times a day.
Correct.
Before we let you go, John Wynn, it came to my attention when you came here that maybe we're being set up. Maybe we're being emotionally manipulated, or maybe we're being gas-lamped.
Yes.
Gas-lamped?
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Okay.
Yeah. Gas-lit.
Gas-lamped? No, it's gas-lamped.
Lamped.
He's doing this on purpose.
I am doing it on purpose.
Yeah. Check with Merriam Webster, who's coming next.
Right.
Yeah.
But tomorrow's show, we're going to the new Jewish deli in Northampton, Lichter and Levin.
Correct.
And you have a connection to the Jewish deli.
That is correct. So that operation is one of the people that started it was the Roost, and that was my wife, Robin Wynn. And so she owned the Roost and she sold it to Lichter and Levin. And so she is a part of that operation, but she was really thrilled to be selling that operation to them.
Yes, and I think given how many eyes lit up backstage at Green River Festival when Emily Lichter of Lichter and Levin was there about the excitement surrounding it. It's very exciting for all of us.
I saw the tray. I saw pictures of the tray that she brought, so I can see why they would be excited.
Yes, whitefish all day long.
I hope they have something for us to sample when we go talk to them for tomorrow's show. Meanwhile, author, educator, Professor John Wynn has a new book out called The Setup. It's a super fast
read. When it hits pace, it speeds through.
And I think there's not a point in it where it doesn't hit pace. I think once you start going, you're not going to want to put it down. It was hard for me to stop 30 pages before the end so that I didn't ruin anything for anybody here.
Same, but I had to be at places.
Thank you. It's such a great book. And as we said on the next Fabulous 413, some of us lie in wait for a good pastrami or knish.
And if you're in Northampton, that wait might soon be over. We check out one of the newest spots as it rises on the verge of opening and get a tour of Lichter and Levin Jewish Delicatessen.
I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Khalees Smith.
We'll
Talk
see
to you
you
tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.